The new Captain America still can't withstand the invincible Red Hulk, even his vibranium wings were torn off halfway by Red Hulk. This is Marvel's big blockbuster to kick off the year, and the latest installment in the Captain America series, but the audience's comments on this highly popular film were mixed. Today is an important day for Ross, as it marks the key moment of his announcement as President of the United States. Ross is the father of the Hulk's girlfriend. He took the stage to deliver an important speech. Although half of the Earth's population has vanished, the crises and hardships have not disappeared. They can only make America great again by working together. Meanwhile, Captain America Sam is drinking at a bar. The television news is playing a biography of President Ross. This scene catches his eye. 5 months later, a jet flies to Oaxaca, Mexico. On the plane, the second Falcon, Joaquin, informs his partner Sam that about an hour ago, a few mercenaries came in with a package below. They were currently handing the package over to the buyer. This involved White House secrets, and they need to handle it with caution. Then Sam dropped down from the sky, followed by a shockwave as he threw his shield. These mercenaries were no match for him. He then charged into another area, blocking bullets with his shield and vibranium wings sent from Wakanda. He used shockwaves to fly the enemy away and scan the building with a red-wing drone, detecting hostages inside the building. Sam quickly decided to rescue the hostages first. Meanwhile, inside the church, the Serpent Society leader, Rattlesnake, was interrogating the priest. Rattlesnake wanted to know where the buyer for the alloy has gone. He had brought the stolen adamantium alloy, but the buyer had not shown up. The priest claimed he didn't know. Suddenly, Rattlesnake senses that something was amiss. He immediately instructed his men to be on guard, realizing instantly that he had fallen into a trap. There probably isn't even a buyer at all. He ordered his men to split into two groups. One group to block the main entrance, and the other to take the alloy and leave the area. But it's not easy for ordinary people to stop superheroes. The door was blasted open by the shield. Sam darted in, picked up the shield, and swiftly took down several mercenaries. At this moment, Sam's partner Joaquin detected that the location of the alloy had changed. He immediately sent the message to Sam, but Sam was being held back by several mercenaries and couldn't pursue immediately. He had to deal with them first. Unexpectedly, the shield was knocked out of his hands. Sam picked up a brick and smashed it at the enemy. Finally, he cleared out those mercenaries, but Sam didn't expect that one of the goons would threaten him with the life of a civilian to buy time for their boss. Sam pretended to cooperate, but secretly controlled Redwing to ambush them. Although he successfully rescued the hostages, Rattlesnake was about to leave the church. The package was being transported to a distant mountain pass. Sam didn't have the ability to clone himself, so it's impossible for him to pursue two targets from different directions at the same time. Joaquin suggested that he could put on the Falcon suit and take care of one side. Understanding that his brother wanted to show off, Sam chuckled and agreed. Soon, Sam caught up with Rattlesnake, but Viper remained completely unfazed. It seemed he still had a trick up his sleeve. Sure enough, the next second, someone charged at Sam from behind. This person was incredibly strong, and Sam found himself at a disadvantage. As the two fought, Rattlesnake seized the opportunity to quickly escape. Sam was caught in a tough battle. He even had his shield knocked away, so the two began to grapple, but Sam's punches barely caused any damage to the opponent, and he was quickly knocked down to the ground. Sam immediately got back up to fight again, using the opponent's strength against him to throw him down. Unexpectedly, the man pulled out a dagger and slashed Sam's chest armor. Angered, Sam quickly knocked him out with 2 strikes. By the time he finished fighting, the Navy SEALs had just arrived on the scene. Joaquin, in the suit, quickly caught up with the motorcycles transporting the alloy. He struck one, causing it to explode. This triggered a chain reaction, easily completing the mission. Joaquin felt incredibly cool in the suit. Meanwhile, Ross was at the grave of his deceased wife. Learning that Sam and the others had successfully completed their retrieval mission, while he was pleased, he also had new plans. After finishing the mission, Sam planned to take Joaquin to meet his mentor, Isaiah, not only to pass on some skills to Joaquin, but Sam also wanted Isaiah to re-accept the U.S. government. Soon, the two arrived at Isaiah's training facility. Upon meeting, Isaiah gave a lesson to Joaquin for underestimating him. Joaquin's attitude immediately became respectful. However, Joaquin was somewhat curious. If Isaiah has this ability, then why doesn't he come out as a superhero? He learned that the U.S. government had kept Isaiah locked up for 30 years and had conducted experiments on him for decades. Sam hurriedly interrupted this heavy topic. Just then, Sam suddenly received a call from President Ross. After finishing the call, Sam had a private conversation with Isaiah. Isaiah was very dissatisfied with the current system.
Captain America is under the command of the President of the United States. But Ross is simply not fit for the position. Sam understood Isaiah's concerns deeply. He used himself as an example to persuade him. Ross had also locked him up for several years at one point, yet Sam still chose to work for Ross because the country was on the verge of losing its way. Sam chose to stand by the president's side. Even if it was wrong, it could still bring hope to the people. Moreover, Sam had a friend working in the White House. If Ross were to overstep his bounds, his friend would remind him in time. Isaiah was silent for a moment, and his attitude finally softened. Sam pressed on, saying, "President Ross just invited him and Joaquin to the White House." Sam suggested bringing Isaiah along. Isaiah then agreed to Sam's invitation. 30 years later, he would appear in the public eye again. Isaiah especially put on his cherished suit, but at this moment, the three had no idea they were walking into a conspiracy. Before long, the three arrived at the White House. Smoothly, Sam was called into the office by President Ross alone. Ross first praised Sam for his heroic performance in Mexico, then revealed his true purpose. It turned out Ross wanted Sam to help him rebuild the Avengers. Sam was momentarily stunned by this. Wasn't it the signing of the Sokovia Accords that led to the disbanding of the Avengers? How could he want to rebuild it now? Ross explained that the situation had changed now. After the battle with Thanos, the public's attitude toward the Avengers had shifted. Rebuilding the team was not just a strategic necessity, but also what the people wanted. After saying this, Ross turned and left the room. Stepping onto the platform to give a speech, he hoped that France, Japan, and India could collaborate with the US to develop and produce the adamantium alloy discovered on God Island. This alloy has immeasurable potential in the defense sector and is even more indestructible than vibranium. But just as Ross was giving his speech, Isaiah suddenly knocked down a guard and seized his handgun. He raised his hand and fired several shots at Ross. Sam quickly intervened to stop him. In addition to Isaiah, several guards surprisingly turned against him as well. The scene instantly spiraled out of control. Isaiah seized the opportunity to escape the White House. Sam and his team chased closely behind him. However, when Isaiah reached a park, his senses suddenly returned to him. He had no idea what had happened before. Isaiah looked around in fear. He didn't want to return to prison, but under Sam's persuasion, he chose to give up and surrender. Sam hurried to Ross's side, arguing that Isaiah could never do something like this unless someone controlled him. He hoped the president would allow him to investigate further, but the security advisor, Sheila, interjected that there were a total of 5 gunmen, including Isaiah. It was clearly an organized terrorist attack. Furthermore, Ross's attitude had shifted dramatically. He decisively rejected Sam's request and assigned the investigation to Sheila. In addition, Ross used this as an excuse to cancel the plan to rebuild the Avengers. Sam was so furious that he was on the verge of cursing, but then he was promptly thrown out. Sam decided to investigate privately. The next day, he visited Isaiah in prison, hoping to get some clues from him. To his surprise, Isaiah was just as confused. He had no memory of attempting to assassinate the president. One moment he was sitting in a chair, and the next, he found himself in the park. But the three of them had been traveling together, so why was it only Isaiah who was controlled? What exactly was the problem? Then, Sam asked Joaquin for help with the investigation. Joaquin hacked into the White House's surveillance system. He indeed discovered something unusual. The footage showed Isaiah's phone constantly flashing white light, and the other gunman had the same issue. Sheila was also examining the surveillance footage frame by frame. She also noticed this scene and instantly understood what it meant. Sheila quickly left her computer. At this moment, Sam was still on the phone with Joaquin. They discussed the doubts about the previous case. What if the buyer who never appeared wanted Captain America to retrieve something? This could allow them to get close to the White House. Sam speculated that they had been monitoring them. The next second, an unexpected change occurred. Rattlesnake opened fire on the car and threw in a bomb. Sam was caught off guard by this. The two immediately engaged in a fight. Sam seized Rattlesnake's weapon during the struggle. He intended to make Viper confess, but Rattlesnake pulled out a handgun instead. Sam quickly reacted and ducked behind the car. He then ran into a nearby recycling center. Rattlesnake followed him inside, taunting that the alloy buyer was willing to pay double to kill Captain America. Just as he finished speaking, he was ambushed by Sam. At this moment, he received a call on his phone. On the other end was the mastermind behind it all. Sam took the phone back to the base and asked Joaquin to try to trace the call's location. Soon, they had a result. The signal was coming from a remote area in West Virginia. There was no air traffic and no infrastructure here. It was highly likely to be a secret base. The two decided to investigate further. Sheila also arrived at the prison holding the gunman. She wanted to interrogate those gunmen, but the guards opened the door and shot the prisoners inside. Then, they turned the guns on themselves. Meanwhile, President Ross was holding a video conference. He
He requested that France and India join the team to jointly produce adamantium. However, both countries refused the proposal, citing security concerns. After all, the leaders of both countries had nearly been assassinated in a foreign land. Ross was hiding in a bunker, too afraid to go outside. Such a timid leader was not worthy of their trust. Ross could only plead fervently. Both countries relented temporarily, but on the condition that Japan must continue to be involved in the plan. Ross could only nod in agreement. He then hurriedly boarded a plane to Japan. Meanwhile, he received a call from Warden Cooper of the secret prison. It turned out that Mr. Blue, who was imprisoned there, had escaped. He was the scientist who created the abomination and the archenemy of the Hulk. He had been secretly detained by his former boss, Ross. Now that he had successfully escaped, he immediately called Ross to taunt him and threatened that Ross wouldn't have it easy from now on. Meanwhile, Sheila was preparing to transfer Isaiah when she received a call from President Ross. Ross instructed Sheila to drop all her current tasks and handle Mr. Blue at Echo Base 1. They must not let the secret be made public. Sam and Joaquin had already driven to West Virginia. They arrived at Echo Base 1. Sam instructed Redwing to cut through the barbed wire. After Redwing interfered with one of the cameras, the two quickly rushed in, cooperated seamlessly, and instantly pried open the door, making their way smoothly to the underground prison. But strangely, it was completely empty here, and behind one door, there were numerous experimental facilities. Sam pressed on deeper inside, finding countless photos plastered on the walls. One prominently featured Isaiah. There were also many research documents on the table, and one note read, "Take 3 daily, do not exceed dosage." Sam picked up a bottle of pills from the table and examined it closely. President Ross had arrived in Japan. He promised the Prime Minister of Japan that both sides would achieve ongoing cooperation. To his surprise, the Prime Minister replied that diplomatic measures had no credibility for a country like the United States, which was accustomed to using force to seize everything. Moreover, the Prime Minister had received some interesting information from his intelligence team. He handed a stack of documents to Ross. After reading them, Ross bluntly stated that anyone who believed such claims might be overly naive. If he had instructed someone to steal the alloy, then why would he send Captain America to retrieve it? But the Prime Minister of Japan scoffed. The United States stole the alloy refined by Japan and sent it back. It is impossible to continue cooperation now. Meanwhile, Joaquin and Sam were on their end. Sam discovered that this was actually President Ross's medical file. Joaquin was accessing the lab's computer, successfully finding the data that triggered Isaiah's control. It seemed that Dr. Blue's song was some kind of mental control trigger. Just then, a voice suddenly came from outside. It was the mastermind, Dr. Blue, aka Stearns. Sam immediately realized that he was the true buyer, the one who hired the Rattlesnake Gang to steal the Japanese alloy. Then, at the president's announcement of the adamantium alloy, he controlled Isaiah and the others to launch the attack and then reap the benefits. However, Sam was somewhat curious. Why did he want to kill Ross? To his surprise, he received a different answer. It turned out that Ross had imprisoned Dr. Blue without trial and used gamma rays to alter his brain structure. As a result, Dr. Blue became extremely intelligent. When Ross discovered this phenomenon, he kept him imprisoned for 16 years and used Dr. Blue's intellect to gradually rise to the highest positions in the U.S. government. Although Sam felt deep sympathy, Dr. Blue had implicated his friends, so Sam had to bring him to justice. Just as Sam charged forward, he was stunned and immobilized by a sound wave. Immediately after, Dr. Blue shut off the sound wave and issued a kill order to the controlled guards. Before quickly leaving the laboratory, Sam reminded Joaquin to show mercy. After all, the guards were being controlled. Then, the two rushed into the crowd and engaged in a battle. But before long, Sam was taught a lesson by the guards' stun batons. They had to fight with all their might. Together, they subdued the guards. But when they chased outside, Dr. Blue had long since disappeared. All that remained were more guards. Just when the two were feeling helpless, Sheila arrived just in time. The three quickly took out the guards. Once they learned that Dr. Blue had escaped from prison, Sheila had to discuss with Sam how to recapture him. But suddenly, a large number of FBI SWAT team members appeared in the woods. They were ordered by President Ross to arrest Sam on charges of illegal invasion. Sheila felt bewildered by this. Just as she was about to call to confirm, the police radio suddenly transmitted a voice. Thus, they were all taken into control. Sam and Joaquin sensed the danger and took off running. Sam used his shield to cover their retreat. With Sheila flooring the accelerator, the three managed to escape the woods just in time. Meanwhile, Ross returned to his residence, feeling somewhat perplexed. His subordinate reported to him that Japan's claims seemed to be true. And furthermore, the Prime Minister of Japan had just decided to deploy the Navy to God Island. They planned to monopolize the adamantium alloy. Worse still, France and India were also devising strategies to seize the alloy. One subordinate suggested that Ross must return to the country immediately to prepare for this tricky situation. However, another subordinate proposed that they must seize the opportunity to negotiate with the Prime Minister of Japan, if they could reach a consensus with Japan. All disputes would be easily resolved. Listening to the two argue back and forth as they continued to bicker in front of him, Ross angrily punched the table. To everyone's surprise, the elderly Ross managed to crack the marble surface with his blow. This left everyone too startled to breathe. Then he seemed to transform into a different person and issued a new command in a firm tone. Deploy a carrier strike group immediately to seize the adamantium alloy. If only one country can control the alloy, then that country must be the United States. Ross then instructed his secretary, Taylor, to arrange his itinerary. He needed to arrive in the Indian Ocean within an hour to lead the fleet in seizing the adamantium alloy on God Island. Sam and his team arrived at the SEAL military base in Virginia. The base commander had prepared various equipment to prevent Dr. Blue from manipulating others through light and sound waves. Joaquin planned to implant another signal to counteract it. Due to concerns that there might be individuals within the base who were controlled by Dr. Blue, Joaquin deliberately played a segment of Dr. Blue's commonly used sonic frequency band. Fortunately, no abnormal signs were detected. Next, Sam pulled out a box of medication and asked the base commander to help identify what kind of medication it was. After that, he encountered Rattlesnake, who was imprisoned there. Sam got straight to the point and wanted to extract information about Dr. Blue from Rattlesnake. After Sam promised to help him reduce his sentence and secure solitary confinement, Rattlesnake revealed the truth. Initially, Dr. Blue was infected by Bruce's blood, which gave his brain supercomputing capabilities. When Ross learned of this, he not only failed to remove the gamma rays from Dr. Blue's blood but actually increased the dosage. This reduced Dr. Blue to being his private advisor and political tool. Ross promised that once he was elected president, he would restore Dr. Blue's freedom. However, Dr. Blue calculated that Ross wouldn't let him go easily, so he secretly hired Rattlesnake to steal the adamantium alloy from Japan and used the CIA's slush fund to pay for it. Once the Japanese intelligence agencies traced the source of the funds, he could incite conflict between the US and Japan. At that point, Ross would bear all the blame. After learning the truth, Sam planned to rush back to Washington to inform President Ross of the information. However, at this moment, Ross had already boarded the aircraft carrier, heading towards the Indian Ocean. Meanwhile, Japanese warships were also en route. Sam suddenly felt that things were wrong and immediately called for Joaquin to quickly suit up. They sped towards God Island. Before long, they arrived on the warship. Sam explained the whole situation to Ross. He was worried that even Ross might be under control and presented the presidential documents that Dr. Blue had obtained to Ross, but Ross firmly denied such speculation, despite the numerous pieces of evidence showing his frequent contact with Dr. Blue. But he was unwilling and didn't feel the need to explain himself to Sam. Sam pressed him more sharply with questions, causing Ross to lose control of his emotions and reveal the truth. It turned out that Ross was suffering from a severe heart condition, and he had sought medical help everywhere without success. It seemed he could only wait to die, but unexpectedly, the medication provided by Dr. Blue saved his life. Ross promised to restore Dr. Blue's freedom after being elected president and allocated him a laboratory for research, even planning to transfer him to the White House. However, later on, he used the excuse that Dr. Blue was behind the Hulk and Abomination and the destruction of Harlem. Ross completely imprisoned him. Ross said he had dedicated his life to the country, and that only by surviving to complete his mission could his daughter understand his true intentions behind these actions. Sam felt a pang of understanding after hearing this, but just then, a subordinate rushed in, looking frantic, to report that 2 fighter jets had just opened fire on the Japanese fleet. The control room had lost signal with those 2 jets, and they couldn't reach the pilots. The situation was urgent. Sam and Joaquin reacted quickly and hurried up to the deck. They needed to warn the Japanese pilots as soon as possible to restrain their urge to retaliate and stop their own jets from attacking, but the controlled American pilots still launched missiles at the Japanese fleet. As a result, the attacked Japanese fighters immediately retaliated, and 6 missiles were instantly fired at the American warships. However, 2 missiles were not intercepted successfully. Sam and Joaquin pursued them. Joaquin seized the opportunity to fire and shot one down. On the other hand, Sam kicked the other missile into the water, but the Japanese fighter jets relentlessly chased after Sam. Sam hurriedly called President Ross, asking him to contact the Prime Minister of Japan to stop the conflict. Ross immediately got in touch with the Prime Minister of Japan, but the latter didn't believe him. Unless Ross could reveal who the true mastermind was, Ross couldn't say a word. The situation instantly fell into a deadlock. Just then, Ross heard Dr. Blue's voice in his earpiece, and he suddenly fell into a trance. He made an excuse and hurriedly left. On Sam's side, he sidestepped and spread his wings, slicing off a section of his own fighter's wing. The aircraft immediately began to drop, but the controlled pilot showed no signs of activating the ejection system. Fortunately, Joaquin acted in time to save the pilot, but even after that, the Japanese fighters remained relentless. At this moment, Ross was still being disturbed by that voice. It turned out that Dr. Blue had killed a retired general and used his phone to manipulate Ross. Ross was desperately trying to resist the influence when at this moment, the remaining American fighter jet launched a few more missiles. Sam hurled his shield to intercept 2 of them. Then, with a quick turn, he took out another missile. But Joaquin wasn't as stylish. When he hit the second missile, he was injured due to the close proximity of the blast and fell directly into the sea. Upon learning that a rescue team would go to save Joaquin, Sam continued to engage with his own fighter jets. He lifted his shield and shattered the protective shield, causing the pilot to eject into the air. However, the out-of-control fighter jet was hurtling towards the American warship. Sam quickly threw out a rope and pulled the control stick, which caused the plane to plunge into the sea, averting a major crisis. Ross's secretary walked into the room to report that 2 pilots had been subdued. Meanwhile, on the Japanese side, seeing the U.S. handle the out-of-control jets on its own, finally believed President Ross's words. This also helped the nearly breaking Ross gradually regain his composure, but just as the plan was about to succeed at the last moment, Dr. Blue let out a furious roar of impotence. After the crisis was resolved, Joaquin was sent to the hospital for treatment. Fortunately, his life wasn't in danger, but Sam was consumed by guilt, feeling that he was nowhere near as strong as the previous Captain America. He had failed to rescue his wronged mentor, and he hadn't been able to protect his partner, let alone capture Dr. Blue. Fortunately, Bucky, who came to visit, noticed Sam's despondent mood. Bucky was also a close friend of the former Captain America. He patiently reassured Sam, saying that Steve handed you the shield not because you were so powerful, but because you are you. At this moment, the SEAL team leader received a call. The analysis of the substance Sam sent for testing had come back. It contained a large amount of gamma radiation that could be absorbed by the blood. The leader was shocked upon hearing this news. He was about to call Sam to inform him, but then, Dr. Blue suddenly appeared in the base. He activated a sound wave to disrupt the leader, maximizing the signal. The captain immediately collapsed. Ross successfully garnered support from various countries. He attended a press conference to publicly tout his impressive achievements. Dr. Blue had already bribed reporters to throw out various sharp questions that constantly provoked Ross. Meanwhile, Dr. Blue found Sam and laid out his plan to bring down Ross. Sam immediately rushed to stop him, but soon the news of Dr. Blue's surrender spread to all the reporters at the scene. Dr. Blue claimed that Ross had promised that if he helped Ross become president and develop secret government projects, then Ross would pardon him. Ross tried to explain but was hurriedly escorted away by his subordinates toward the White House. Suddenly, Dr. Blue mentioned Ross's daughter, Betty, which caused Ross to lose control instantly. He looked on in horror as his body began to change, and when Ross stood up again, he had transformed into Red Hulk. Everyone present was dumbfounded. Although Sam arrived just in time, his combat power appeared too weak in front of the powerful Hulk. Realizing he was no match, Sam had to take off quickly to lure Red Hulk away. Unexpectedly, a soldier fired a shot. Angering Red Hulk, Sam could only turn back, unfortunately, against overwhelming strength. Two armed helicopters were rendered useless. Seeing Red Hulk's power reach its peak, to avoid hurting innocent civilians, Sam quickly contacted Sela and asked them to clear out Haines Point. Ross had once taken his daughter there to enjoy the cherry blossoms. Sam planned to lure Red Hulk there to try to awaken his consciousness. Under Sam's deliberate guidance, Red Hulk chased him all the way to Haines Point. Unfortunately, this didn't awaken Ross's consciousness. Red Hulk remained furious. No matter how Sam tried to persuade him, he could only launch a second round of attacks, but it caused no real damage at all. Instead, Sam was pinned down and beaten. He tried to find an opportunity to create distance, but was grabbed by Red Hulk by the wing. Sam couldn't break free at all. His vibranium wing was torn off halfway. Then Red Hulk grabbed his head. In a critical moment,
Sam kicked towards the spikes, which finally made Red Hulk release him. Watching Red Hulk charge at him, Sam hurriedly raised the other half of his wing and thrust it towards Red Hulk. The energy he had accumulated exploded instantly, and both were sent flying. Time passed, though Sam didn't know how long it had been. Sela and the others dug Sam out, but Red Hulk had not reverted to Ross. Sam tried to slowly approach Red Hulk, continuously soothing him softly. Fortunately, the recent powerful blow had calmed Red Hulk down. Looking at the surrounding cherry blossoms, the memories of his father awakened Ross. He gradually transformed back to his original form. In the end, Sam cleared the name of the first black captain, Isaiah, allowing him to regain his freedom. Joaquin also woke up. Ross admitted his crimes. He was imprisoned in the most heavily guarded floating prison at sea. However, he found a silver lining in his misfortune by receiving his daughter's forgiveness. His daughter came to visit her old father, and the father and daughter finally reconciled. That's the entirety of Captain America 4. As the opening installment of Marvel's Phase 5, it carries the mission of continuing the classic IP while exploring new directions, yet it has not escaped. In recent years, the assembly line production of Marvel works as an A-level production. The action scenes in the film are filled with a sense of downgrade. The aerial and naval battles portrayed in the trailers were greatly diminished in the actual film. The visual effects were rough, and the fight choreography was perfunctory. Even though there were occasional appearances of Wakandan technology or personalized action designs, it was hard to cover up the overall mediocrity of the scenes. After the film's release, reviews quickly polarized. Combined with a low acceptance rate for the new Captain America, it resulted in the film not achieving high box office numbers. Overall, the predicament of Captain America 4 is essentially a microcosm of Marvel's rigid model, when political correctness becomes just a slogan and the nostalgia card is overdrawn. Even Harrison Ford's acting cannot save it. If you enjoy my channel, please click to subscribe to my channel.